What's going on, guys? It's your boy DisTedCoder, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about a brand new ruling that just came out last month that buffs the most powerful search spell in Yu-Gi-Oh! So of course the search spell in question that I'm talking about is Small World. This card is absolutely phenomenal and reads as follows. Reveal one monster in your hand, choose one monster from your deck that has exactly one of the same type, attribute, level, attack, or defense, and banish the revealed monster from your hand face down. Then add from the deck to your hand one monster that has exactly one of the same type, attribute, level, attack, or defense as the monster chosen from your deck. Basically, the way Small World works, I know the text is a little bit complicated, but this card is effectively able to search out any monster in your deck, making it probably one of the most powerful search spells ever printed. Basically, the way this card works is you'll reveal a monster in your hand and then reveal a monster in your deck that has one thing in common with the monster you revealed in hand. Afterwards, you'll then reveal a second monster from your deck that has one thing in common with the first monster you revealed from the deck, and that second monster you reveal will be added to your hand. Basically, an explanation of this would be something along the lines of activate Small World, reveal Volcanic Shell in your hand. You can then, after that, reveal Ash Blossom from the deck because the only thing they have in common is that they are both fire monsters, and then at that point you would be able to reveal Alistair the Invoker from deck because the only thing Alistair the Invoker and Ash Blossom have in common is that they both have 1800 defense, at which point you would add the Alistair to your hand, and there you have it. From Volcanic Shell to Alistair the Invoker, you have added a combo piece. Now, the question you're probably asking yourself is, how can this card get any better? It actually has a couple of unique interactions when it comes to interacting with monsters that have question mark attack or defense. The reason why question mark attack or defense is always very weird and, odd to be working with is because question mark attack and defense monsters are considered that those stats are undefined, meaning that they do not have a numerical value until the point those monsters are either on the field or in the graveyard. When a monster's stats are undefined, for the most part, with the rulings that we have in the database and precedent set in the TCG, we know that question mark attack and defense monsters are not something you can normally interact with cards that specify a card's stat line needed for it to interact with that card. If we go to the OCG database entry for Small World, there is one singular ruling in that database entry, and we're going to look over it together because it basically explains to you how Small World is supposed to interact with monsters that have question mark attack or defense. So the ruling in question here pertains to the card known as Gizmek Uka, which reads as follows. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, special summon one monster from your hand or deck whose attack equals its own defense with a same attribute as that monster. Now, the reason why this is interesting is because Gizmek Uka specifies that whatever monster it's going to be summoning from the deck needs to have the same attack to its own defense. Now, the question here is, how does this interact with question mark stat line monsters? And we actually have a database entry on this, which asks the following question. Can I special summon a monster whose attack and defense are both question mark with the effect of Gizmek Uka? And the answer is, a monster whose attack and defense are both question mark is not treated as having the same numerical value for its attack and defense, so it cannot be special summoned by the effect of Gizmek Uka. So basically, this ruling with Gizmek Uka essentially says to us that you cannot compare numerical value on the stat line of monsters that have question mark attack or defense because those attack and defense will not be considered to be equal to each other. Now, the reason why is if you look at a monster that has 100 attack and another monster that has 100 attack, we can agree that they both have the same attack. However, if a monster has question mark attack and another monster has question mark attack, essentially the way you're going to have to look at it is that they are both considered undefined, and two undefined values does not necessarily mean that they are the same value. So Gizmek Uka is not able to interact with question mark attack and defense monsters, and for this reason, especially with the reason of it being in the database page for Small World, it was believed previously that you could not interact with question mark attack or defense monsters when using Small World. So for example, one of the interactions that was able to work because you couldn't compare question mark attack or defense defense was you were allowed to use any sort of line that gets you from a card in your hand to Eater of Millions to then add Gren Maju from the deck. And the reason why is because the only stat line or the only trait that they share in common is that they are both fiends, despite the fact that they both have question mark attack or defense, because as the Gizmek Uka ruling tells us, you cannot compare their attack and defense stats because they are considered undefined. So I know what you're asking yourself, Coder, where is this going? What is this new ruling? So there's this new card that is being released in Power of the Elements. It is a set that is out in the OCG. It is not out in the TCG just yet, but we are going to get it very soon. But when cards release in the OCG, we get database entries and FAQ points for those cards. And the card in question here is Evil Awakening Master Nightmelt. And the effect of this card reads as follows. You can tribute one monster, special summon one monster with the same original type, attribute, level, attack, and defense as the tributed monster, but a different name from your deck. So the reason why this is interesting is because we once again have a card that compares attack and defense stat lines as well as the other traits on the card. Normally, we would assume that this card will work the same way as Gizmek Uka as well as the Small World. However, if you look at the FAQ entries for this card, that is not what it says. The FAQ entries for this card read as follows. If you tribute a monster with question mark attack, you can special summon a monster with question mark attack. The same is true for defense. Now, the reason why this is particularly interesting is because this FAQ entry was added last month. And as I normally say, when it comes to the OCG database, whatever is the most recent entry that they put is normally the one that you would follow. The Gizmek Uka entry has not been removed or errated in any way, so it's really kind of up in the air as to how Small World is going to interact. The only thing that we can realistically take from this is that there is a possibility that Gizmek Uka doesn't work because it's not able to compare question mark attack to question mark defense, as opposed to this card, which is potentially able to compare question mark attack to question mark attack and question mark defense to question mark defense. So basically what I'm saying and what this FAQ entry is potentially saying to us is that you are able to compare two question mark attack stat lines and two question mark defense stat lines, but you cannot compare question mark attack to question mark defense. Hence being the reason why potentially this card does work with question mark stat line monsters, but Gizmek Uka doesn't. In the case, however, where this is the basically correct ruling, that would indicate that Small World can interact with question mark attack and question mark defense. And the reason why is because Small World does compare the same stat line on two different cards, the same way Evil Awakening Master Nightmelt does, as opposed to the Gizmek Uka, which basically compares question mark attack to question mark defense, meaning that it would not be able to do that. So the reason specifically why this is interesting is because we don't have enough data to basically 100% confirm whether or not Small World is intended to function the way Master Nightmelt does or the way Gizmek Uka does. Overall, it was believed that anytime a monster had a question mark stat line, that its stats were simply undefined and you could never compare undefined stats to other undefined stats, but Master Nightmelt is basically putting that into question. So as it currently stands, we are going to have to wait in order to find out how exactly this ruling is intended to function. So don't forget, guys, if you're going to a tournament, any regional, any YCS or anything like that, and you are playing Small World and you do intend to use this interaction, make sure you ask your head judge, because whatever your head judge rules for your events is correct for the purposes of that event. Personally, I do believe that the Gizmek Uka entry and the Master Nightmelt entries are basically something that should put this Small World ruling into question. That being said, guys, I hope you guys learned something new, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video talking about Small World. I'm excited to see if they actually go through with this and allow Small World to interact with question mark stat lines, because that'll simply make this really powerful search card, arguably one of the most powerful search cards ever printed in Yu-Gi-Oh!, that much more powerful. So that being said, guys, I hope you guys learned something new and enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Have a good one, guys. Peace!